Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. This Anthony Mundine, Danny Green fight that they're talking about putting together in Australia. Let me be as clear as I can be here. In my opinion, this is a suicide run by Anthony Mundine. I believe he has very little chance of winning the fight. Very little chance. We have weight divisions in boxing for a reason. Right? The gap in weight between these two men is substantial. The general public shouldn't be fooled by a fight that took place several years ago when the two men weighed approximately the same. Life has taken them in different directions. Danny Green went on to win the Cruiserweight Championship. Anthony Mundine has never fought at Cruiserweight. Understand, there's a huge gap between Cruiserweight and light heavyweight. Huge gap. Let's say they put a weight restriction on this fight. If it's in the 180s, understand the fight Danny Green had before his last fight was fought in the 180s. Danny Green weighed 186 and 1/4 pounds for his fight 4 fights ago against Danny Santiago. In other words, Danny Green is a guy who has fought in the 180s. Right? For his last fight, he came in weighing 190. Folks, he's within 10 pounds of target weight. Think about the punching power. Maybe Mundine was able to hurt Danny Green the first time around. Right? How is Mundine gonna hurt a guy who has been in the ring with elite cruiserweights? Let's also talk about Danny Green's losses. Unlike Mundine, who has had some interesting losses to less than elite competition. Right? Look at his last fight. Right? Danny Green, by contrast, since 2010, has only lost to Worldachek, elite fighter, elite, and Antonio Tarver, who later, after this fight, failed a drug test. Right? I consider both Tarver and Worldachek to be elite competition. The Tarver fight has a cloud over it. Just like Antonio Margarito's career has a cloud over it since he was busted for loaded gloves. I believe when you find out a guy has juice, especially when the guy had to lose a lot of weight to make weight, and then curiously had more stamina as the fight went along, I think that raises flags. Right? I have no proof that Tarver illegally juiced for the Danny Green fight. But let's just say if you look at a film of that fight, especially the way as Danny Green gets tired, Antonio Tarver continues to maintain a certain level of fitness, let's just say I'm a skeptic of that outcome looking back on it. Right? Let me say this too. The young man who Danny Green just beat, Watts, Watts outweighed him by 8 pounds. Watts came in the fight on a winning streak. Watts was 18-2. That was a hard, tough, scrabble with a legitimate cruiserweight. Now here, you have a huge weight gap. Danny Green's been accustomed to being in the ring with big men. Right? Real cruisers. Elite cruisers. You tell me what Anthony Mundine is going to bring into the ring in a fight at the cruiserweight level. Right? Let me say something else, too. Mundine's one of my favorite fighters. right? I've admired Anthony Mundine for years. But this is gambling. This is not a fan club site. Right? Mundine's punch resistance has been sorely tested of late. Joshua Clottey had Mundine falling down almost as if he was on a trampoline. Look at the number of knockdowns in that fight. Right? Then, of course, Mundine gets stopped his last fight. Neither opponent was a cruiserweight. Let's say this too. Mundine's punching power. Does anyone really believe? Hold on, let me get this disco. Does anyone really believe that Anthony Mundine has the punching power to hurt Danny Green at this stage of their careers? Right? I personally believe it's a mistake for a fighter to starve their bodies too long. Bernard Hopkins stayed at middleweight a very long time. Right? When he went up to light heavyweight, ironically to fight Antonio Tarver, Hopkins, in interview after interview, was amazed at how much healthier and how much more resilient his body felt. Now, Anthony Mundine is 5'11", right? I'm just telling you that if you track his weight, look at when he was a super middleweight. Look at how he then drops back down to 154. I believe that takes a toll on the body. I really do. So now, even if he were to gain the weight to enter the ring as a cruiserweight, in my opinion, he's not going to be as fit as Danny Green is. Right? So put me among those who believes that this fight's an easy one for Danny Green. That Danny Green could literally just be a non-stop hunter. Could run red lights. Right? He would be able to take, in my opinion, Anthony Mundine's counters at this point of their respective careers. I'd be surprised if this fight didn't end by stoppage. Compare and contrast Danny Green to Mundine's last opponent who stopped him. Danny Green is bigger. He's savvier. When Danny Green wants to cut off the ring, he knows how to cut off the ring. Right? So, to sum up, I like to get nostalgic with the best of them. I like to remember fights from a decade ago, and I like to say, wow, that was a good fight. Hell, I remember fights from the 1970s. Right? 10 years ago has little relevance to today, when the fighters have diverged weight-wise, and when one guy's been fighting up at cruiser, and the other guy's been fighting down at junior middle. Right? There's a huge difference. Mundine actually wanted to fight Floyd Mayweather. Right? Mundine was fighting much smaller guys. You couldn't even envision Mayweather in the ring with some of Danny Green's opponents. Mayweather versus Tarver? Are you kidding me? Right? So, I'm curious about these odds. I get the feeling the public's going to be fooled by the first fight, right? If you can get Danny Green at 5-1 odds or better, I think that's a steal, right? I'm assuming Danny Green's going to be the favorite. If he's the underdog, hell, that's even more beer for us, right? I don't think Mundine has a chance. I think all of us, too, need to realize that when fighters are ready to walk away from the sport, right? They want that last big paycheck, right? Sometimes what makes financial sense doesn't make pugilistic sense, doesn't make boxing sense, right? I imagine both of these guys realize that the other one represents big box office for them, the biggest box office they can receive. But when it comes to boxing, this fight truly makes no sense for Anthony Mundine. I think he gets knocked out. Let's hope, and I'm serious about this, let's hope that the arena has a doctor at ringside. Let's hope that everyone is prepared to rush a man to the hospital if he's badly hurt. Right? I'm telling you, there are many jurisdictions in the world that wouldn't even sanction this fight. I'm a guy who loves the idea of Sugar Ray Robinson, when he retires the first time, going up to light heavyweight to fight Joey Maxim. Right, folks? Anthony Mundine is now trying to go up to cruiserweight on his way out the door. And let's just say the last few fights of his career, he hasn't looked like Sugar Ray Robinson. This has disaster written all over it. If it's reasonably priced, I'm going to be rushing to the clerk at the casino to place a bet on Danny Green. I'm going to hedge the play. Danny Green to win. I'm going to hedge the play with some money on Danny Green by KO, especially if the fight is 12 rounds. Keep track on the number of rounds. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and dwyervip.com. Thanks for stopping by.